I wasn't down to really come live in the countryside in the beginning. Like all my shoes were heels, and I was wearing suit every day to work.
Corona collectively and personally has created that, those deep questions, why am I here? What am I living for?
It's hard to believe looking at crowds like this, but Japan is fast becoming a pretty empty place. Japan is in the midst of a dramatic population decline. The country's population shrinks by hundreds of thousands of people every single year. And few places are suffering the effects of this decline more than the countryside. In just 20 years, nearly half of all towns nationwide will be at risk of disappearing. It's why today, much of rural Japan looks like this. Nationwide, 13% of all homes are now listed as abandoned. But the coronavirus pandemic has left many wondering whether it's time to leave the city life behind. For 3 straight months, the number of people leaving Tokyo outpaced the number of those moving in, a first since 2013. 30 kilometers south sits Yokohama, Japan's second largest city and a sizable part of the greater Tokyo area, home to some 38.5 million people. The Swindle family moved from the United Kingdom to Japan 4 years ago. Yoko works as a graphic designer. Her husband Jason is an English teacher, and both are now seriously considering a life in the country.
This COVID situation actually made me easier to think that it's possible to live in the countryside. Before, I had to meet my client in person. I had to commute to Tokyo to meet them. But now, since this COVID situation, we always have meeting online. So I could live anywhere basically if I have my laptop and Wi-Fi.
Japan is one of the most urbanized countries on Earth. 91.8% of the population lives in a city. Jason routinely commutes an hour and a half each way for work, traveling on some of the most crowded train lines in the world. For Jason, 4 years of the crunch of city life has taken its toll.
I used to live in London, and this is about like 100 times worse. The squash, the squeeze. Probably the only benefit of Corona is that the trains are not as packed. And literally you get injured on these trains. It's serious stress. I haven't got into no fights yet this month. Very stressful, man. I suppose I've got used to it after 2-3 years to an extent, but shelf life and time to get out of this lifestyle.
Due to COVID, since April, May, I'm working like half the week at home, which has been great because, I think a lot of people have realised that we can work from home. And, if you've got like a 2.5-3 hour return commute every day, so have that 2.5-3 hours of your life back, to be able to spend with your family, to do whatever, to spend in bed. This is like incredibly important, precious times. I definitely think it was my idea originally to try and make this move over to the countryside, this change of lifestyle. So there is a place we want to check out. Maybe sort of like a holiday home, somewhere you can go the weekend, go for a few days over, holidays, longer holidays, and just get a vibe of what it's like to live in the countryside.
It's all up to me how I overcome this fear of changing from the lifestyle. My parents had a lung problem. They died from lung cancer, so definitely I don't want to live here permanently.
The Nagi family moved to a farmhouse in Uenohara 9 years ago to set up an organic farm and eco-lodge. But then the pandemic hit the hospitality industry hard, so the couple shifted their focus to the farming side of the business.
When we first moved out here, if you would have asked me, did you come out to the countryside to become a farmer, I would have said no. It's really only just been the circumstances of the coronavirus and our hospitality business changing drastically that we've had to kind of reinvent ourselves. Since COVID, we've been shifting to producing vegetables commercially and selling them as a high quality product to people in Tokyo, especially people who are more concerned now about shopping in public places and are comfortable being able to order high quality organic produce online from a farmer that they know. That's the service that we're essentially trying to provide. So this is the guest house that we've renovated. It's a 150-year-old Japanese farmhouse, and we've pretty much done a full renovation on the interior of the house. As you can see, all the old beams, these wooden posts and beams are the original structure, and everything else from the floor to the ceilings to the walls and the shoji, including the windows, we've replaced and kind of put our own touch on. This is one of the bedrooms on the first floor where guests stay. We usually have large groups of people who come and spend the night with us and then do any kind of farm activity up on the farm, helping take care of the chickens or just kind of having a whole farm to table type experience staying here. Both my wife and I worked in corporate type business in Tokyo. We decided to move to the countryside shortly after 3/11, the big earthquake and then the Fukushima disaster. At the time we were really living like a high consumption lifestyle, working hard and spending a lot of money in the city, but it was getting old. I felt like I had done the whole Tokyo salaryman experience. So it was a combination of that feeling personally, and then the shock of the earthquake and the Fukushima disaster made us just kind of reevaluate our lifestyle, really consider where our food comes from, where our energy comes from, and realize how fragile and dependent our lifestyle is on the systems that we take for granted living in the city. And I was really looking to come out here and have a place where I can experiment to try to build that more resilient lifestyle, more resilient to the shocks of just the unknown and dependency of that working for a company and living in the city. And living in the city, especially living in Tokyo, there's a lot of social expectations, there's a lot of work obligations, there's a lot of structure that you have to deal with. And out here, there's hardly any structure in terms of how we build our lifestyle, but that means that it's all up to us to create that structure for ourselves. So it's one of the best things, but it's also a challenge for us because it requires us to really be to push ourselves because there's nobody else pushing us. It kind of requires an entrepreneurial spirit to really be able to, make it here in the Japanese countryside, I think.
I mean, I wasn't down to really come live in the countryside in the beginning, right?
Oh no.
Oh no. I mean, like all my shoes were heels, and I was wearing suit every day to work. And I mean, in the beginning, we used to go to Tokyo a lot more because we weren't really used to this life here yet. But then time passed and, we didn't want to go in anymore.
In the beginning, we were going to Tokyo 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And then it became like, once a week, and then maybe like once or twice a month. And now it's like, I think we've gone in once or twice this year since since COVID happened.
I mean, the earthquake was big though for me. I mean, it kind of left an impact like, whoa, it's maybe really time to think about something else. The option of moving out of Tokyo, I never thought about it until that happened. I mean, that really got me thinking like, what about food? I go to the supermarket, the shelves are empty. I mean,
it's interesting because I look at the shock of Fukushima and the earthquake and how it made us kind of like really reanalyze our lifestyle at the time. It's like this more recent shock of COVID kind of forces us to kind of look back at the last 8 years and see how much better of a position we're in now compared to how vulnerable we were in our previous lifestyle 8 years ago.
And even for the kids too, it's just good they're around and we take them to the farm and, they see things grow and they get to harvest it and they appreciate it more. It's like, Daddy made this, And I mean, it does taste better because it is fresh and we don't use, any chemicals and stuff. Yeah, so, I mean, I think the disadvantage is that you have to figure out how you'll make an income. And it's hard to make a stable income because obviously, you're not getting a monthly salary or something if you're trying to run your own small business. It's definitely not that easy to just move. Yeah.
There's growing interest among people from Tokyo who are looking to move out to the country now, especially with COVID.
Yeah.
I wonder how that relates with the demand, because I feel like there's always this supply and demand in terms of like people looking to come out here,
Right.
and then also people who are willing to actually let go of their property and rent their property or sell their property to people.
Right,
So
right.
there's a
That's
huge
really,
stigma,
really hard.
a huge stigma associated with renting property and renting your house. If I rent my house to somebody. If I rent my house to a stranger, then my neighbors might think that I need the money and I'm broke and like, what if something happens and they burn the village down? Exactly. These things happen. It's really hard to kind of get a foot in. That's kind of what we're doing with Jason. We're introducing him directly to a landowner nearby for a potential house to rent.
I'd say we would. I mean, it's not definite to move to Uenohana. Definitely not definite. Obviously, at the moment I'm doing this teaching. If it was somewhere like Uenohana, I could still commute. It would probably take me 2 hours, I'd imagine, door to door, rather than the hour and 20 minutes it takes at the moment. So twice a week you'd suffer it. There were other teaching jobs I could do. I also used to work in film, so I've got this film background and I've got some connections that might pick up in the future. Byron sent me a couple of photos of a house, like an old Japanese country house. If possible, if we can afford it, to rent it for 6 months or hopefully for a year, and we can just go there a few weekends, long weekends or holiday times, and just get a vibe of what it's like.
The ancestors, they're watching. I like his mustache. 50 feet, 58 feet. It's massive. So what do you guys think of the house?
I like the space. It's a project, no?
Yeah, a lot of work.
But to be honest, I kind of expected more from empty house.
You know, when we first came here, there was nobody in the village besides us, right? But then there's another couple of empty houses over here. If somebody else moves in there, and then somebody else moves in there, then all of a sudden, you know, people's acceptance to having new people coming in, it's already kind of like opened up. The door's been opened.
Definitely nice area. It's in the middle of nowhere, and I can feel the nature and the smell. It's very different from where we live. But the fear, definitely education of our daughter and also friends. So, yeah, I only lived in a mansion, so
It's a big difference.
alien life to me. Yeah.
Everything has good and bad, doesn't it? Do you know, there's good points and bad points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the bad point about living in a countryside
Inconvenience.
is inconvenience.
But convenience is also relative, right? Like, you begin to question whether the things that you worry about, that you used to worry about, are things that are really important to you or not. You have to kind of step out of the city and out of the consumer lifestyle to really be able to begin to realize that there's another way, really.
You'd sort of just make something happen, really. I think that's the main impetus for me. It's to not to let life happen and react to it. You know, to make life happen.